My name is John Patterson, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Influential You. Welcome to the Influential You podcast, where I'm happy to say that today my special guest is Dr. Gary Ward, here all the way from Perth, Western Australia. Gary, I'm gonna have you say a few things about yourself in just a second, but I love this man to death. He is one of he's one of my favorite people on the planet for a few reasons. One, a close personal friend. Get to spend a year with you in France, and also sometimes in Australia and New Zealand. But he's also one of the faculty members for Influential You, and has been on the faculty now for 2-3 years or so.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
So what else should we know about you just to get to know you?
Oh, gee, how long have you got?
No, a short hell. Yeah, just a short bit.
Well, I'm a medical doctor based in Perth in Western Australia. I'm married to Claire. We have 4 children, as you know, pretty damned amazing children.
Yes.
We have, I'm a successful, well-respected doctor, and Claire and I have got these 4 children, and we have this opportunity now to travel the world. We've purchased a property in France, a little farm on which I've planted some oak trees and hopefully growing some truffles shortly, and looking to spend more of our time there on the property, and inviting people to come visit us over there.
That's great.
So yeah, it's a bit about me.
All right, good. All right, well, as I said, I've known you for a while now. I think maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years or so.
2013 is when, end of 2012, I think, was when you first came to Perth and led workshops.
Okay.
To introduce this education to
Perth. All right, very good.
Yeah.
And how are you doing? You nervous?
A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
All right.
You
don't seem it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll deny it then.
All right, very good.
A little bit.
Well,
I'm with my buddy.
I know. It's just us. We should have a whiskey, right? We should just absolutely have a whiskey with us right now.
There is whiskey in mine.
Oh, is there? Maybe there is in mine too. We don't know, do we? Delicious. Tastes like water. All right. So, as you know, on the podcast, there's a few different things that we do. Everybody who participates with us, for example, has a journey. There's life before Influential You. There's what you discovered while you were here, and then there's life as it is now. And I know from reading some of the information about you and sort of the through line of your journey, it's a little bit like, I can't say it exactly, but it's something like from chaos to...
Yeah, I think it was from struggle and chaos to harmony and satisfaction.
That's great.
That's the way I'd phrase it.
Now, as I read through your notes and things like that, you were dealing with a lot before Influential You. You were, by appearances, thriving as a doctor, family man, and so forth. So just tell us a little bit about life before Influential You. And by the way, I know it was amazing and great. You did some amazing things.
Yeah.
Your journey from, I'd like for people to know a little bit about some of your schooling, degrees and things like that. And then here you are out in the world living your life.
Yeah. Well, going all the way back, I grew up on a farm. And I love to tell people it was a farm called Woodstock. Just happened to be called Woodstock. And here I was growing up in the 70s, going to university, embracing a bit of that hippie freedom. And the Woodstock Festival came along, and, wow, I came from a little farm called Woodstock. My dad was a farmer. Mum was a nurse. I had the opportunity to go to boarding school and then found myself at university. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at that stage, but did a year of agriculture, then a year of veterinary science, and then completed a degree in zoology, which I absolutely loved. It was all about evolution and ecology, the way animals interact with their environments. But job opportunities weren't great in that sphere of at that field. So my mum at that stage suggested I might go back and do medicine. And with her, she was a nurse and could see that being a doctor was a rewarding career. And so I did. I started back at first year university in Western Australia. Got halfway through my medical degree, and I was rowing at that stage. I've got this kind of genetic attribute of being tall and good at rowing. So I loved that and pursued the sport of rowing. Took a year off my medical studies to begin a research project in sensory physiology, which is kind of the interaction that humans have with their perceiving their environment, how they move in the environment. And it was an Olympic year. I had an aim to get to the Montreal Olympics, just missed out, but that gave me the opportunity to complete my thesis and was awarded first class honours in sensory physiology. Then went on to complete the medical degree, worked in one of the big teaching hospitals in Perth for a couple of years, and then travelled, as a lot of young Australian doctors do, they travel overseas to get some more experience. I went to the UK, I spent some time in Leeds, pursuing my love of neurology, so the study of the brain. Then fell in love with Cambridge as I was travelling through England. Just absolutely loved the architecture and the environment of Cambridge, and applied for jobs there. Got a job on the back of my rowing ability more than anything else, because the professor in that department needed me for his crew. So I had a great time in Cambridge, worked there for about 2 years, exposed to all sorts of cutting edge medical things that were going on at that stage. I was involved in heart transplants, in liver transplants in the very early stages of that discipline in medicine. And it's where I met Claire. And there's another story, as you know, about that. We came back to Perth. I worked for another couple of years at the hospital, the major hospital. We started a family. It kind of interfered with my study to become a specialist in medicine. I was still keen to become a neurologist. Did a lot of research in neurology during that phase of my life. But then had the opportunity I was invited to move into general practice, and it much more suited our life and with a small family. So began general practice, and I've been doing that now for 40 years. Absolutely love it. I've moved here and there, but so by the time just before I heard about before you came to Perth, this is where. So as you said, I had a great reputation as a doctor. We had a family of 4 by that stage. Everything was great. I was well respected as a doctor. The family was good. But I'd always had this sense that there was something else that I should or could contribute.
Yeah.
I was kind of present to how much suffering there was in the world. I thought, there's all this war, conflict. I heard about the fact that 30 to 40,000 children die every day of chronic persistent hunger.
Yeah.
A tragedy that no one hears about. And I was involved for a long time, I still am to some degree, with an organisation called the Hunger Project. So dedicated to ending hunger and poverty on the planet. So I got involved in that. And then I got involved in medical politics. I got involved in another educational company for which I volunteered a lot of my time. But I was trying to spin, that
bunch of plates.
circus trick, people spinning plates, and I'm rushing from one thing to the other, trying desperately to have my medical career still work, my relationship with Claire still to work,
right? Being
a good dad, and all of that. Trying hard to fix something, and it was a struggle. It was kind of chaotic, and I think there came a point where it all kind of came crashing down. I think the spinning plates.
For a while, all the plates fell.
I think you know that story, but we probably don't need to go into detail about that. It was kind of a move to become a bit more entrepreneurial and to have the financial situation taken care of, or to provide a better kind of medical service, but it became as you know, a bit of a media storm, and
I do want to touch on that one if we can. Are you okay to talk about that one?
Yeah, sure.
Well, because I think so. As I know, and I'm going to tell the short version of the story, and then I have a question about it.
Yeah.
So you developed, as an entrepreneurial sort of aspect of your doctoring, you developed a kind of bespoke way to take care of your patients. A kind of what is it called?
Yeah, concierge.
Exactly
is what it's called here in the US. And if I can add this little bit, I'd heard about this on a visit to New York. You know, one of our second daughter became a supermodel, you know, obscurity to one of the best known models in the world. So we had this opportunity to travel, go see Gemma in New York. I had to go to a doctor over there, and they came across this concierge practice.
Yeah.
And it was on a subscription model. I thought, this is great. It's very personal and lovely, and you know, it shows that the patients appreciate the doctor. And anyway, so I decided I'd launch that in Australia.
Yeah. So the story is, and this is about, I think some of the times there's moments that I remember very, very well about meeting you and getting to know you. But so he's now started this business, converted many clients over to this concierge business, and then he's off to France, where again, spending quite a bit of time by virtue of, you know, a small place that you have there, and, you know, friends made through Claire over the course of years. And then one of the patients didn't care for it too much, and then contacted Talk Radio. And suddenly, while you're vacationing in France, you're being painted the scoundrel, the greedy doctor, you know, the greedy doctor who happens to be traveling in France. And of course, his daughter's a supermodel, and what a scoundrel, you know, the rich and famous.
How dare you?
Taking advantage of people. Well, by the way, and nothing could be further from the truth. And if you knew this man at all, you know that there's nothing but heart and soul and love, and, you know, oozing out of his pores. But so, first of all, what was that like for you?
It was devastating. Honestly, it was horrible. It was a horrible experience. I've almost gotten over it, but yeah.
And horrible in the way that you were just misunderstood for your intentions. Horrible in the way that you were painted to be some villain. What was horrible about it?
It was almost it was being painted as the exact opposite of how I wanted to be known, and I knew that most of my patients saw me differently, but I was kind of crushed. I'd made this effort to do something that I thought was a good thing, and enabled me to have a closer relationship with the patients that really wanted to work with me. And but to get that sort of media attention, and to have politicians call me price gouging, and it was unethical, and all of that was devastating. It just felt like just crushed me.
Yeah. Oh, and I know Gemma's had some similar experiences where, you know, for all she's lauded and everything, I don't know how many covers of Vogue she's been on, but for all of that as well, she's also had some times where, you know, people say things about you, and it's really difficult to deal with. So you say you're now mostly over it. I mean, some wounds are hard to heal, right?
Well, one of the things that happened for me after I began studying with you, I could see the flip side of it. And luckily enough, some of my medical colleagues who I was working with at the time saw this as a tremendous opportunity for marketing, we're getting some attention because of you, Gary. This new practice we're developing is in the news. Our logo's up there.
Right.
So they saw the opportunity. And looking back, if I'd had a little more understanding of the way the world really works, it might have been a great opportunity for me to stand up for myself, to say, no, this is what it is, and get even more attention. Would have been great.
That's right. Well, it's one of the things, I mean, even, you know, for those of you that don't know, we here at Influential U, we traffic in what we call transactional competence. That's sort of the fundamental underlying philosophy of what we do and what we teach, and it's based in a philosophy that's called transactionalism. And transactionalism is often talked about as something else. It's often talked about in a bad way and so forth. But nothing could be further from the truth, because ultimately it means coexistence and a whole bunch of other stuff. But just like your bad news could be good, there's ways that we're turning that into some real opportunities, and with a little specialized knowledge from people in PR, and a little specialized knowledge in how to make those in transactional competence, we're turning that into something really golden. So yeah, it would be nice to know that. Maybe there's still hope to heal some of those old wounds.
Look, they're gone. The trauma's gone. It's behind me. It was a learning moment for me.
So about the time that we meet, had this happened just prior to when we met?
2011. This happened in 2011.
So, and then we met in
2012.
2012. Okay, so this is a fresh wound at that time.
That's pretty fresh.
All right, good. So, and you were dealing with that, and then also about that time, you were dealing with some other things. I remember. I'm going to have to get into them, but I know you were dealing with some things that your children were going through at the time.
Oh yeah,
especially Gemma and things like that. Yeah. And so you come to one of our events, and I'm there, and you're thinking, who's this guy? And then you end up studying with us. And during our programs, what did you discover? What did you deal with? What did you confront? What happened for you?
It's hard to put so much that I learned into this conversation.
Yeah.
But when I was thinking about this, preparing for this, one of the kind of light bulb moments was really at the workshop that you led in Perth, where you asked the people in the audience some questions and said, well, if you're that kind of person, you go and stand over there, and if you fit these characteristics, you can stand over there. And if you fit these, and everyone just could see themselves in your description. We ended up with 4 groups in different corners of the room, and you illustrated the 4 transactional personalities incredibly vividly, and how those personalities fit with what you teach as the transaction cycle. And it was like, oh my goodness, that is so obvious now that I see it. And so the experience for me was like there'd been something hiding in plain sight, if you like.
Yeah.
That old expression, I learned something that I didn't know that I didn't even know.
Right.
And so that was, and then right through all of the programs, I think one of the most vivid things for me was this idea of just slowing down, thinking accurately. What is this activity I'm engaged in right now? How is that activity supporting the satisfaction of my aims in life, for my relationship, for my career, for my real satisfaction with the activity that I'm doing, for my money aims? So a real opportunity to just be mindful of what I'm doing and how that might contribute. And if what I'm doing might be detrimental to some of the other areas. So not to focus so much on, before it was like, I'm trying to change the world, I'm trying to make a difference everywhere, giving away and at the cost of my own health, at the cost of my relationship with Claire. That moves me still. That I spent so much time in so much chaos and so much suffering, really. That the difference now is like, it just seems smoother and much more satisfying. And I can slow down a bit, take notice of what I'm doing. I think I've said it already. Yeah.
All right, good.
A bit more harmony between the different aspects of my life. People talk about work-life balance. It's like, I love my work now, but I don't have to do it all day. I do it for half the time I used to do.
Well, and that's the thing I think you and I have talked about, because for a little while you were wondering if you were doing the program right or something, might not be applying it right, because you keep saying, all these people around me are, making 50%, 100% more money. What am I doing wrong? And then we had a conversation. You realize, oh, I actually am not working. I'm working half as much as I was before, and still making the same amount of money. And you're able to transact more effectively for some of the full scope of that aims that you have.
Yeah.
Across many of this. So now there's, just a few things. So from what I know, in terms of some of the outcomes of your study here, that's one.
Yeah.
Being able to, work a lot less. And I know you're kind of at a place where you're wondering about the future. So there may be a lot less working, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
But working less, I know your relationship with Claire is, incredibly different now. There's a lot more time together and all of that. So
the arguments don't last as long.
What?
The arguments don't last. I don't sulk for as long. So yeah, there are so many areas of my life now in which I feel really satisfied, and some of that I think is something to do with just accepting me, accepting particularly my personality. What I finally landed on through a bit of a progression was that I identify as the transactional personality that you teach of a performer. So there's a whole set of characteristics that go with that. And what I'm now much more comfortable with is the value of that personality.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I now recognize makes me a really good doctor, because I have fantastic bedside manner with people. I make them happy. Generally I can make them happy, even in those that are suffering, pretty awful conditions or illnesses. I always carry this sense of optimism with me. So people come into my consulting room often, and when they leave, as they walk out, they say, "Boy, I feel so much better now, doctor." And it's not just, I recognize it's not just whatever good advice I've given them, but it's there's a mood that they can leave with them.
Yeah.
I don't, but
and your personality and your skill combined is unbelievable.
The other thing that really came home to me in this conference a bit more was how good a relationship I have with many of the top specialists in Perth. So much that I can phone them pretty much at any time of the day, even if they're in the middle of an operation. They'll sometimes pause. "Oh, it's Gary on the phone." "Okay, yeah, I'll take that call." And so for my patients, I can often not refer them to a specialist and takes them 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks to get an appointment and so on. So I can just pick up the phone and get some advice really fast and deal with their issue rapidly. And I recognize that's highly valuable.
It is, absolutely. In fact, I think Josh announced you last week. What do you say? Doctor to the stars or something like that, to the rich and famous. I'm not sure how he said it, but I know one of the things that you're quite revered for is both your skill, the network of help that you're a part of, and your care, your deep and profound care that you offer in your personality to people. One of the things you may not know, I was diagnosed with cancer a couple of years back, but it was only after some work with Gary. I was in France, and Gary reaches across and says, "We got to deal with whatever this is on my neck." Right there was it was right in there.
What is that thing?
And long story short is they found a baseball-sized tumor in my throat. I speak for a living, so it was a bit of a problem. But because of you took me over to hospital and we did some scans and some other things, and were able to inform my own doctors back home about some of the things that we found. And so I thank you so much for your care. You've always been an extraordinary, caring human being. And it's a joy to me that you decided to join our faculty as well because of that care. So I'm curious about that as well. Did you have a moment at some point where you said, I want to be a part of this faculty? What happened there?
Yeah, yeah. It became so apparent to me through this education that not only, I started to be satisfied with many areas of my life, but other people who were participating in this education had this incredible shift in satisfaction in many areas of their life, and that you teach people to pay attention to their health, the activity that they put their mind body to, how they know how to coordinate activities of others and themselves, to take care of the relationships, take care of your career identity, all of those 15 conditions of life that we must satisfy in order to live a satisfying life. So, long story, but it just seemed to me that kind of fitted with my drive to be more than just a doctor, healing the illnesses that came in, and often the recurrent illnesses, but to recognize that what provides people with a healthy life is to have healthy relationships, to have a career identity that's really satisfying, to have enough money to pay for medical care and so on. So all these other areas of life impact health so much that I thought this for me would be an extension of being a doctor. If I could be on faculty and teach this to others, then that's almost more than being a doctor. So that's what attracted me to being on faculty, that I can teach this.
And I'm privy to lots and lots of conversations you and I have all the time together, and I know what fascinates you about this, and I know what fascinates you about being a doctor, and in many ways it goes back to your studies of biology, zoology, you could say, ecosystems and
Evolution,
evolution and all of that. So let's have a little conversation there about that, because let's just talk about it in terms of health for just a second. So you have a kind of premise about health that is not common, certainly in the United States, and what we might call Western medicine. Now, you are practicing Western medicine, so you're not practicing something else, but you have a particular view about how we might become a healthier society. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
That's a big question.
It is a big question, but here we are.
Big conversation, yeah. Well, the premise is that our health is not just what's inside what you might call the skin bag. We have this
skin bound.
Skin bound. We're not skin bound in reality. It looks like we are, and it looks like we're separate from what surrounds us. But the reality is we're not. There's we use the term porous torus, which might take too long to explain what that is. But our skin and our internal membranes are in a constant interaction with the environment, or transaction with the environment. There are exchanges going on all the time, and we're not just humans. There's much more other organisms that we depend on, that live on and with us. We're in a symbiotic relationship with all of those bugs that people now talk about the microbiome and how important that is. Well, there's also a biome on our skin everywhere that keeps us healthy, and then it doesn't end there. It's and I alluded to it before. The health that you express comes from the environment, and really, it comes from the environment of the kind of the quality of the relationships you have, the quality of the education you receive. So it's a flow between the environment and what we call our physiological body, and there's a historical flow as well, which is the underlying philosophy that you teach is a process relational philosophy, that everything's in a process, everything is in relation to everything else, so that who you and I are now is given by a history of generations and generations of our ancestors, all the way back to amoebae and
Mm-hmm.
the first life forms. Anyway, you might be getting off on too much of a tangent.
No,
but
not at all. Not at all.
that's,
So that we are, we're sort of we are an ecosystem in an ecosystem, and it's constantly in a process, relational, transactional, adaptive dance with everything all at once, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the best way to describe your premise is something like, when we account for that, we do better.
Exactly. Exactly.
When we dismiss it, we don't. And that's
Yeah.
kind of fundamental to everything that we teach. When we account for that, we do better. When we dismiss it, we don't. And we dismiss it because of our own hubris and our own conceit and our own ego and all kinds of other stuff. And there's a kind of duality that, as you know, I used to study architecture. When we talked about classical architecture, one of the things about classical architecture, it's called classical because not because it's classic, not because it's old, because it was during a particular period or ethos of time when everything was being classified into separate bits, like this is this and this is this and this and this and this and this. And in that great classification, basically one of the things that happened is we started to separate things. We started to think of mind and body and this organ and that organ and this bug and that thing. And so things started to develop a kind of separateness, which produced a lot of problem because none of those things, like Kirkland will often say, this Kirkland, the co-founder, will often say something, look, we could look at any one organ in the body, but be clear that they work together in a system and harmony. We could talk about any one of them, but you can't take it out because it's part of a thing there. So you began to, I know, focus a little bit more attention on preventative medicine and what you might call, a healthy ecosystem or something like that. Anything you want to say about that?
Well, I wanted to shift the way I practice from a kind of reactive, reacting to whatever illness came up, to helping people build some resilience, to what you might call preventative medicine, but build. The way to build resilience is to work in harmony with the environment, harmony, but to pay attention to what you're taking in, to pay attention to how much exercise you're doing, to build some capacity and some resilience with health.
Great. Totally communicates.
And the work that Marnie and I do on the Fundamentals of Transaction program, I think helps people in that sense to build capacity in many different areas of their life, and that's automatically going to contribute to the health. So in some ways that's my favorite preventative health program.
It's the Fundamentals of Transaction. Well, I want to bring up one other piece to it because I think this is an important part. So back to the thing I was saying about classification, often is the case, people will talk about mind, body, and soul, or mind and body, or heart. They talk about all these things as if they're separate things. And as you know, we teach it. We don't talk about mind, body like they're two separate things or two distinct things. They're all one system. So when we talk about health, we're not just talking about biological health. We're talking about emotional, mental health, and so forth. So anything you want to add to that conversation, especially in the light of that, the Fundamentals of Transaction is a wonderful way in which to experience a lot of deep and profound satisfaction and peace. And so what do you want to say about all that?
Well, I think this is linked to one of the things you teach, that this human organism is biology, all interconnected. Like you say, all those, the liver and heart and everything is all interconnected. We're biological, but we also carry around or are embedded in narratives and stories. So there's a huge amount of limitation or empowerment through whatever language we carry, whatever stories we carry about ourselves or about our environment. So we're biological and we're linguistic, you teach.
Yes.
So I've started to consider that the areas of medicine that are called psychotherapy or psychiatry, that classification of people into different psychiatric disorders, are really in a sense either linguistic misinterpretations. That interpretation that I'm not good enough, or the world's, I'm not good enough, leads one into a sense of depression or despair. There's different versions of that. To be frightened constantly of the world, or have a narrative that the world is a dangerous place, might lead someone to experience what we in medicine would call anxiety. Even the more weird mental disorders are really dysfunctions of brain function, not mind.
Yes.
So anyway, I now view breakdowns in the biological system that people have to deal with for their health, breakdowns in their linguistic health, if you like.
Yeah, linguistic health. That's a great. Yeah, we coined it today. That's a good one.
And then of course, the next layer really is how good are you at participating in the exchanges with others, and that's often involves language and the linguistic domain. But if you're not able to be in really good, healthy exchanges with other people, as well as with the environment, but often, we as humans rely on other people to help us to make our money and have a career and have relationships and have all of that. We rely. You can't live alone.
Yeah.
So that idea that there might be healthy transactions or healthy exchanges or unhealthy ones that consistently break down, there might be a way to talk about transactional health, or what you teach is transactional competence, which is a great phrase, I think.
That's great. That's great.
That's what I think.
I don't know if there are any, any kinds of what's the word we use? Soapbox. Is there anything you want to say that you haven't said already?
I think I've pretty much said it.
I think so too. I think so too. All right. Well, I'm just checking in. I see Josh says "Doctor to the Stars." Yes. Thank you, Josh.
Maybe I'm not. This is not really a soapbox moment, but it is to kind of complete that story about my first attempt at entrepreneurship, where I asked people to pay an annual retainer. It wasn't very much, but since then, I have a handful of clients who pay me many multiples of the figure that I first asked for, in order to provide them, they're wealthy clients who really pay me for the kind of peace of mind of knowing that I'm available, and that whole big network of specialists are available to assist them at the drop of a hat. So, that's been very rewarding, and why Josh would call me the Doctor to the Stars.
All right. Well, I want to give you one opportunity also to pitch the place you'd like to have the mid-year summit in 2024. If you want to say anything about 2025, is something about where you'd like and why that?
So this has to do with the property that Claire and I have in France. So it's a small farm. It's in a beautiful part of France, away from the tourist area. So it's not in an area that most people would. They say, "Do you live in the Dordogne or in the Loire Valley?" No, we don't. We live in an unknown area of France, but it's
gorgeous.
One of the most beautiful places.
My favorite.
Yeah, and we have, and it's an area that is deeply connected. It's an area where, Claire, I was on the phone to Claire this morning, and she was telling me just how moving it is to be there in that community, where her French sister took her out to a nearby farm, and they were given the milk and the cream for their week's supply, and they were given a whole lot of partridge eggs. There's this deep connected in relationships and in the exchanges of produce that happen all the time, and it's in an environment that's beautiful and taken care of. It's an area of France in which pesticides are banned, so the farmers don't use pesticides. So the life is abundant there. There are birds and there are bugs and insects, but things grow fast. and so it's this beautiful, nurturing environment, beautiful food, and we have this vision of creating our home in France as a place where people can come together. We say unplug and recharge.
Yeah.
Recharge by being connected to the environment and connected to a very nurturing environment. And along with that, it's quite close to the town of Cognac, where the French beautiful drink of cognac, or kind of brandy, but it's cognac. That town is a beautiful town. It's quite nearby us, and they have a fantastic conference venue that you and I think would be amazing.
It is an amazing conference venue. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous, and in the middle of an area where you said it beautifully when you said unplug. Whenever I go, first of all, to stay with you in the village, I just completely unplug in a way. It rests my soul in a way I cannot experience and have never experienced anywhere else on the planet. I fully and utterly just rest down to my toes, but not in a state of boredom, but in a state like there's a cacophony of life, like you just said, and it's unbelievable. And being in this place that's many, I don't know, thousands of years old, of stone villages and all of that, and the wine vineyards and all of that, in Cognac and the rivers, and it's just stunning. So your plan is 2025 in Cognac?
Correct.
All right. Okay.
And perhaps before that, some of our more esteemed students might come and visit
and stay with us. Oh gosh, absolutely.
Either retreats or forwards as you recharge.
Very good. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our interview today with Dr. Gary Ward. Just a few things to take us out. I want to let you know that each week we do stream at 2 p.m. Pacific on our website, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please do share it with other people. Also, you can go to influentialu.global and test drive our self-guided program. It's called Thrive. Isn't that a good name for it?
It is great. I love it.
Thrive lets you learn at your own pace and enjoy some of the perks of full-time study with Influential U. Thrive subscribers enjoy weekly live e-coaching sessions along with access to ever-expanding content and a library that features exclusive video lessons from some of the founders like myself and faculty from around the world. You'll get proven proprietary tools to accurately assess your career and develop a realistic strategy to achieve your aims faster. Your membership also includes chat access to the faculty so they can say hello to you, and discounts on our transformative conferences and workshops, perhaps one day in France. So today our show notes do offer links to connect with our guests, plus links to websites, books, or special downloads we may have talked about today. This podcast is made possible by the Influential U staff, mentors, and members around the world. Special thanks go to our executive producer, Tyson Crandall, and video and sound by Michael Teehee, Joey, and Daryl Anderley. The Influential U podcast is produced by Influential U LLC in Ventura, California. This episode was recorded on July 13th, 2022, and the podcast theme is by Chris Standring, titled Fast Train to Everywhere. If you haven't offered a rating or review, we ask that you go to your favorite podcast app and let us know what you think. This helps us more than you know. Thank you much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.